Wow. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, board members, past and present, staff members, my amazing staff, past and present, my friends, my family, especially friends and family who don't often come to events like this. It's fun, isn't it? You should go to a lot more of these. They're cool. One of my friends who isn't here today is named Jay, and on Sunday, Jay and I were out walking door to door in Los Gatos, dropping off flyers for Measure A. The flyers look something like this. This is probably not the appropriate venue for me to try to influence your vote, so I won't do that. Vote yes, yes. But Jay and I were going door to door in Los Gatos, and we were reminiscing about the times that we spent door to door canvassing in the late 80s and early 90s. I'm talking about the real hardcore canvassing, not just leaving information like we did on Sunday, but actually knocking on doors. And not just knocking on doors and collecting signatures, but actually raising money door to door. How many of you have done this work? I know there's some of you. Yes, a lot more than I thought. Is that easy work? No, it's the hardest fundraising that I know about, right? It's just, so Jay and I, we spent a lot of time reminiscing about what happens to you when you go door to door, from being totally ignored to being threatened with a lawsuit, from being verbally abused to unwanted sexual advances, and that's just when you knock on Donald Trump's door. So I didn't write that. That joke actually wrote itself. It just showed up here. Anyway, it's no wonder canvassing is so hard, right? You knock on someone's door at 6:30 at night and they're trying to feed the baby or the toddler, or they just got home and they're tired. They certainly aren't expecting you to show up. Not once did I ever knock on someone's door and have them say, "Oh, I was just thinking about the reauthorization of the Clean Water Act in Congress, and I was hoping someone would come by and civically engage me." And yet, on any given night, a good canvasser could expect to raise a few $100s and maybe sign on 4 or 5 new members to the organization. And then we would go to Sacramento and we would meet with state senators and tell them about how many members we had in their districts, and they would be impressed and they would listen to us. And then one day in 1990, Anna Eshoo showed up in my office and she said, "You know, I ran for Congress 2 years ago and I lost, and I want to run again, and I know that you all here in Palo Alto walk door to door in the district that would be mine if I win, and I figure you guys probably know the electorate better than I do. What can you teach me about the people who might be voting for me?" I was 22 years old at the time. That was super cool. And so the point here is that grassroots work matters, and people really do care. If they didn't really care, I think that disasters like the Flint, Michigan water supply would happen more often, not less often. I think that powerful people who put their own interests in front of the public interest would win more often than they win right now. And thanks to people like you and organizations like PACT, I think this is a better place to live than it would be otherwise, and it takes that kind of work. So if I deserve this honor at all, then every one of you in this room deserves this honor. Listen, people don't give to me, people give to the Valley Medical Center Foundation, and they don't give because of me, they give because of Valley Medical Center. VMC is a jewel in our community, and I don't save any lives at all, but there are people here who do, who run this institution. Our Chief of Surgery, Greg Adams, is here. Our Chief of Newborn Care, Dr. Balaji Govinswamy, is here. Our amazing leader, Paul Lorenz, our CEO. Our COO, Benita McLaren. Our Director of Women and Children's Services is here, Sue Kale. These are people who run this medical center, and all I have to do is talk about it and share. And people give because they get it. They get that supporting the medical center that takes care of this community regardless of anything, that welcomes anyone regardless of anything, that's something that should be cared about. And I'll tell you something else. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for people like John Turturro and the Sharks, because I think you now have a sense that they care as much about this community as they do about winning hockey games. John, thank you so much. I'd like to close with a word about risk. In the late 80s, as Leah mentioned, I left a potentially safe career in hotel management, and I sort of fell into grassroots community organizing. And 13 years ago, I joined the VMC Foundation, despite having exactly 0 background in medical care. And yes, I do raise money in unconventional ways sometimes, and so people say to me, wow, you're really willing to risk. Maybe, but frankly, I'm a little bit tired, and maybe you are too, of wealthy, successful, straight, white men standing in front of big groups of people talking about how you really need to be willing to risk. Because, thank you, because that's not fair, is it? If you're struggling to feed your kids and pay the rent and you have no savings and you have no college education, then your opportunities to risk and throw caution to the wind might be a little limited. And if you don't have a spouse like I do, my wonderful wife Kate, hi, to support, and in a family, my folks are here, if you don't have people to support your risky moves and your risky behavior like I have, then maybe the risks are sometimes a little bit too high. Kate and I don't have children. We're not a paycheck away from a shelter, so I'm lucky that I get to take risks. But organizations like PACT, they give people an opportunity to risk in a way that puts them into uncomfortable situations. As you heard the PACT leaders talking about earlier, they put themselves in situations that are very uncomfortable for them, and that is risky. They band together and they get things done. And they do it in a way that is risky for them, but not in a way that is so much risk that it poses a threat to them in a world that doesn't always reward risk. You know, we always talk about Silicon Valley rewarding risk. It doesn't always, but PACT allows for the kind of risk that the average person can take and really make a difference in their community. So yes, I do the work that I do because I get to. I'm lucky that way. And I also do it because bad things are wrong and everybody should do something about everything. But to put it a little more eloquently, in a quote from Bobby Kennedy, who gave a speech in 1966 to a group of students in South Africa, and I didn't learn about this speech until 1999. Bobby Kennedy said, "Each time a person stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or speaks out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples can build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." Thank you, PACT, for being those ripples of hope. Thank you for all of you for helping build that wall that can sweep down the oppression and resistance. It's an honor. Thank you so much.